Now from my videos, it's kind of obvious that I like video games, music, and hopping around anime conventions. But something else I'm a fan of, even though it probably doesn't look like it in most of my videos, is sports. I grew up 10 miles outside of Cleveland, and I root for all of their teams. I root for the Cleveland Indians, the Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I even root for some of the smaller teams, like the Cleveland City Stars, or the Lake Erie Monsters, who used to be called the Cleveland Barons, who used to be called the Cleveland Lumberjacks. And I also rooted for, until the team folded, the Cleveland Crunch, also known as the Cleveland Force. And they don't mean that as in police force, they meant that as in Star Wars force. They had this giant inflatable Darth Vader holding a soccer ball, and they'd run through his legs for their entrances, and you know what, the less said about that team the better. Anyway, I love and I cheer for all of my hometown teams, but being a Cleveland fan is kind of unique. You see, most people don't really understand what it feels like to be a Cleveland fan. Well, I'm going to temporarily break code and tell you exactly what it feels like. Imagine, if you will, a castle sitting at the top of a hill, and it's surrounded by bright green rolling plains. Except for this one little patch of dirt behind it, but you know what, nobody talks about that. Now, inside this castle there are several different chambers. There's a throne room, a dining room, a bathhouse, a billiard room, there's an arcade. Yeah, this castle has electricity, by the way. Now below all of that is a basement, which is actually a giant brewery/bar. And all the different ales and stouts and drafts and what have you flow directly from the tap into the customers' mouths, because the bartenders are all telekinetic. Now below the basement is the sub-basement, and this was basically an afterthought when they built the castle. The floor is entirely dirt. It's wet. There are rocks in it. There's bits of glass in it for some reason. Now imagine that chained to the wall by the wrists, just high enough that his toes can't touch the ground, is Aladdin. Disney's Aladdin. Except that parts of his hair have been ripped out, his clothes are all soiled, and the last time he ate anything that qualified as food was when Jose Mesa forced him to eat Abu alive. That's you. That's me. And that's every Cleveland fan. Purely at random, a large steel door next to the furnace flies open, and through that door walks an 8-foot-tall, hairy fat guy dressed entirely in S&M gear. He's got like the zipper mask and all these bondage rings all over him, and he's got a leather bra. He's fat enough that he needs a leather bra. So he waddles his way over to you, and then he undoes the chains on your wrists, but instead of catching you or holding you, he just lets you fall straight to the floor. And then he drags you over to a special table at the opposite corner of the room, so you get a face full of mud, rocks, and glass the entire way over. Now this table that he sets you on is red, and it tilts from your head to your toes at about an 88-degree angle, and it also leans just slightly to the right. Oh, and it's red because it's covered in diced up chili peppers and your own blood. So he slaps your face first onto the table, and then he starts whipping you in the back with a spool of barbed wire. And the entire time he's yelling at you, "Where's my chicken soup?" And all you want to do is scream, "I don't know!" But you're too weak to even talk, so he just keeps whipping you and whipping you. And he makes sure to turn you over now and then so he hits both sides evenly like he's cooking a human hamburger. And then he starts singing, "Pittsburgh just won the Super Bowl. Boston's won everything in the past 10 years. San Antonio only has one professional sports team worth giving a damn about, and they're better than you." And it just goes on and on and on. And then finally it stops, because he's just too damn tired to deal with you anymore. And he drags you off the table, back through the mud and the rock and the glass, and he hangs you back on the wall. And then he makes sure to wrap this plant around your neck. And it looks like a vine, but after he leaves, you slowly start to realize it's not a vine, it's poison ivy. But the important part is this. After being dragged back and forth across the room, hit with the barbed wire, not being fed or given anything to drink on any kind of regular basis, you're still alive. And that hurts less and less every time it happens. And you're just waiting for that one day when you're going to get out of that room and go Rambo mode on every single person in the castle. Especially the big hairy fat guy. So yeah, that's kind of what it's like to be a Cleveland sports fan. I'm sure there are other cities that can sort of identify with how this feels, but the big hairy fat guy may be a big hairy fat girl. There are other little subtle differences between us, but I think you get the idea. Oh, and since the NBA playoffs are going on right now, I thought I would mention to the Cavaliers roster LeBron James, Noah Williams, Delonte West, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Anderson Varejao, Ben Wallace, Joe Smith, Wally Zerbiak, Daniel Gibson, Sasha Popovich, Terrence Kinsey, J.J. Hickson, Darnell Jackson, Gerard Williams, and Lorenzen Wright. No pressure.